Gameplay, practically speaking, is one-to-one identical with Xingqiu's. There is practically no difference. Where you cast your elemental burst, you switch out your normal attack on your new characters, and you get some rain sword flying down. It is exactly one-to-one with Xingqiu's with almost no difference. Sometimes
one of the things that I hate from the Genshin Impact community is this extreme anchoring bias where everything that is new in the game must always be evaluated in the context of what we already have instead of looking at the new things for what they are. And I think nothing is more case in point than a character like Yelan. And this is something that you could very, very clearly see from the little short 10-second clip that I played. But look at what you're seeing now on screen. No matter how much you want to put Xingqiu on the field, no matter how much you give him a sacrificial sword and all these sorts of things, or you give him Kazuha or Bennett or Xiangling, he cannot reposition as fast as Yelan can right here. This is absolutely amazing. So in Genshin Impact, you've got most characters having standard movement. You've got characters like Shenhe, Miko, and let's say Rosaria that can directionally dash quickly. Then you've got more extreme movement with Ayaka and Mona that can really sort of glide around the field, and then you get extreme movement like Sayu and Yelan. So just right off the bat, you can see that the movement, the ability to reposition yourself and to actually avoid attacks is already completely different between Yelan and Xingqiu. And what's more, Yelan herself is a bow character, she's not a sword character, and you might say, well, this doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because all I'm doing is I'm just pressing E and Q because I'm just stuck in the old ways of playing. And this is exactly where the problem is. Having the ability to do ranged damage is something that is quite kind of important. So you can see in the background, I'm obviously running the Yelan solo, but I've had runs here where these little meta chills, whatever you call them, have run off, and then you just hit them with a breakthrough bulb. You can see he is like right at the distance. If I had a breakthrough bulb, it's very easy to sort of hit him whilst his back is turning, and you can sort of take him out at range. This is something you cannot do with Xingqiu. Functionally, you cannot access that playstyle. That is what's so different and unique about Yelan. But you might say, look, you don't care for the fact that the one's a bow and a sword user. You don't care for any fancy gimmicks on the E because they're just sort of, in your opinion, just particle generators. But I do think this is kind of disingenuous. One of the special things about Yelan is the fact that she's got this ability to do a breakthrough bob. This is a sort of very, very quick charge attack, and hopefully you've been paying attention to what you've seen on screen right here. This is exactly what I'm doing. I'm utilizing the full aspects of her kit, ignoring her breakthrough bulb damage when it can get on the field so quickly is a very, very big fundamental mistake. And that's something that comes from the fact that you want to just play her as an E. I press E, then I press Q, and then I swap off kind of thing. Whereas this character is more involved. So just straight off the, if you just sort of look at Yelan as she is, just this alone is so fundamentally different from Xingqiu. If you want to do a quick E with Xingqiu, you've got to animation cancel and waste stamina. Do you know what happens when Yelan uses her E? She can actually save you stamina. She can reposition. And that is like so different. And you might say, well, look, their elemental bursts aren't exactly the same. And they are not exactly the same. So one of the things that I pointed out months ago when we did the Yelan initial release, and also a couple of days ago, and finally I went to lose Gaming also covered it, is some of the Yelan tech that there is. Basically, you can get more than like 7 to 9 hits off in 1 second from Yelan's elemental burst, and that's by using her lingering lifeline in a very clever way. This is once again something you cannot do with Xingqiu. No matter how much Kazuha, Xiangling, and Bennett you put into the mix, you cannot get additional hits with Xingqiu. This is a tech that's exclusive to Yelan. It's something that is completely different. It's functionally different. It's got different implications for how you do optimal damage and team rotations. Once again, if you're only going to play her according to the standard Theorycraft formula, you're not going to access the full potential of the character, and you're going to make the mistake of saying she's like Xingqiu. It's no wonder people think she's like Xingqiu, because they're playing her exactly like Xingqiu instead of playing Yelan how you should be playing Yelan. That's like my biggest complaint. But it goes even further. Yelan herself has her elemental burst that might on the surface look the same like Xingqiu. You know, you sort of do the rain swords, and you know, you do the little and dice hitting, but has also got some fundamental differences. So for instance, Yelan herself can boost her own elemental burst damage. You cannot do that with Xingqiu. You cannot get in those extra hits like we sort of talked about. You cannot sort of do that fancy tech and then get a breakthrough barb and charge and sort of boost your own breakthrough barbs at damage as well. These things are fundamentally inaccessible to Xingqiu, and they are important. That is an extremely important part of Yelan's multipliers and her overall damage towards the team. And this is the thing. So if you really understand the full or the totality of Yelan's kit, you can see her. She's not a Xingqiu. Look how quickly we vaporized multiple enemies here in the Klee and Yelan sort of demo. You cannot easily do this with Xingqiu, or as easily as I've sort of done it here. In fact, one of the complaints a lot of people have with Klee is the fact that she applies too much power for even Xingqiu to keep up. And I'll be honest, yes, the same with Yelan, unless you've got, of course, C2 and higher Yelan, in which case these two work really, really well. But again, just coming back to this perspective of a C0 Yelan, you've got so much more access and new abilities with the character that to just sort of pigeonhole her into, oh, a Xingqiu 2.0 whatever is just so fundamentally wrong. But you might say, well, Xingqiu's got damage reduction, so if there's an enemy like Magu and I stand within the Bennett ult with my Raiden Shogun, I cannot get one-shotted. Yelan can't do that, therefore she's better. Well, not really, and this is one of my biggest problems. What does Yelan have that Xingqiu does not have? A massive HP pool that you can use to tank with, a massive HP pool that you can switch with, a massive HP pool that you can utilize whilst running around. Very much like Kokomi. Look here, Kokomi just tanked a hit that would instantly kill Yamiko, and we just sort of undo all of the damage. And I deliberately did it like right here. Trust me, I can dodge Magu, but I just want to sort of show you this. Like, there are different utilities, there are different ways for you to utilize how a character should be played. So yes, if a character provides damage reduction, that is good on them. But if you use Yelan in a far more cleverer way, you don't even need that. You can reposition some of the things that your damage reduction would have absorbed, you don't need to absorb. And in any case, if you're going to try and play Yelan with Raiden Shogun, you understand that there is one of the Fury Crafters end-free sort of charge cancel, animation cancel tech that you can do. Basically, if you've got the stamina, you can still avoid some damage using some clever iframing techniques and so on without any serious or significant loss of DPS. In fact, that DPS loss might have been made up for the fact that Yelan's going to contribute to increased damage on your Raiden Shogun. So once again, this is one of those things that's like so interesting to me, because when Kokomi came out, a lot of people said, where's the damage? But when Kokomi's role compression and all of the other utilities were spoken about, everyone's like, nah, she doesn't do any damage. And now suddenly, you know, the shoe's on the other foot. We're going to compare a character like Xingqiu to a character like Yelan that does more damage than Xingqiu. Now suddenly, oh, utility is everything. It's just like, wow, like, thanks for finally acknowledging that there is utility beyond just damage in the game. Oh, and by the way, this is one of my favorite little party tricks. I can just stand here with Kokomi and take all of these hits and it just doesn't matter. In much the same way, if I had Yelan, I don't even need damage reduction. I just quickly zip around him and attack him from the back and so forth. So, in my opinion, the fact that there are so many fundamental differences between Yelan and Xingqiu just tells me that you can't say the one is just an upgraded version of the other. I don't think it's fair to say that, and I think the biggest problem here is that everyone, because Yelan like just recently came out, is still playing Yelan as if they would play Xingqiu. I think this is the biggest problem. They're not playing the character for what she is and how she's meant to be played, and that's why I've given you some examples here in the background, and these examples work perfectly fine even at C0, although there is a bit of like uptime differences and so on between a C0 and a C6 Yelan. So at the end of the day, for me, it's not an either or. It is each of these characters have their own unique identity, and once people realize that, you can actually then sort of take the best of both worlds. In fact, you can even put Yelan and Xingqiu together in a team and you can still get good results. Thanks for watching. Cheers.